We're going to talk about the elements of design. Now, if you go online and you Google elements of design, you're going to get a number of different lists. Some of the lists are only up to maybe 6. I've seen others that go up to 15. Some of the different authors actually divide them up between elements of design and principles of design. And so this is my list, and I kind of merged different things together. But we're going to talk about these 12 points, which are elements of design. Now, we're going to divide this into 4 different videos. And so this one's going to deal with focal point, directional movement, and space, both positive and negative. The first element of design we're going to talk about is focal point. It's sometimes referred to as emphasis, but what it is, it's where your eye is drawn into the composition. Now, this is a composition by Ellsworth Kelly, and he called it Spectrum Colors Arranged by Chance. Although I don't think there was much chance in it, because there is a focal point. If you look at this, you'll notice that the dark colors are on the perimeter, and as you move to the center, everything becomes brighter. And that's why there's a focal point, because your eye is drawn to the brighter area. This is a piece by Georgia O'Keeffe. And when you look at it, it's basically a yucca flax type plant, and all the leaves emanate from one point. That creates a very strong visual focal point. Jasper Johns was part of the pop art movement. There's no question where the focal point on this is. It's a target. This works because it's very bold, but you need to be careful of putting things right dead smack in the middle of your composition, because the target idea there rarely works. Another pop artist, this was Roy Lichtenstein. Kind of a disturbing image, actually, but there's no question where the focal point is. It's the barrel of the gun. This was Winslow Homer. Now, he was an active artist during the Civil War up through the early part of the 20th century. When you look at this, there's a lot of dark things over here with this. It's a tree that has fallen over, and that's all the roots. And you see this old woodsman here with a campfire. And this is basically your focal point is drawn here because of the bright colors. The second element of design that I'd like to talk about is directional movement. Now, there are different elements that can draw you in and move you around a composition. This one I particularly like. This is a printmaker from California. Her name is Natalia Moroz. If you look at it, there's a strong directional movement here following the trunk up. As it comes up, it curves right here to create a focal point. Okay? A very nice composition. Lots of directional movement and a focal point also. This one is a painting by Edgar Degas. It's a French painter. He was one of the post-impressionists. It's been used for this very thing in lectures constantly. But when you look at this, there is movement going through here. You see the tables run this way, the paper runs across here, then it turns and moves this way. There's also linear movement with rhythm coming down here. There's also the back of the bench that draws you this way, and so you're brought in and moved this direction. This is a painting by another California artist. Her name is Erin Hanson. When you look at it, she's used sunlight radiating down through here, and so you have all these different rays of color coming down, and the sky is almost like a stained glass window and all these different sections of the branches. And so your eye is drawn this way because of all these light colors drastically being brought this way. It's very dramatic. Georgia O'Keeffe, very, very well-known artist. This is called Gaspé. She was traveling up in Canada. She saw a storm coming through, and this was the impression that she got. And so this is the painting that she did from that experience of being up in northern Canada. I think just about everybody's familiar with Vincent van Gogh. When you look at this, a lot of directional movement. He started putting swirls in the sky, and his paint, if you've ever seen a real live Van Gogh painting, he painted very, very thick. And so there's a lot of texture to it, but there's definitely directional movements because your eye follows these swirls around throughout the sky. This was the last painting that Vincent van Gogh did. It's called Crows in a Wheat Field. And there's directional movement because you have a road coming this way, a road coming this way, and then it draws you into the wheat field. So once again, very strong directional movement to draw your eye into the composition. The third element of design that we're going to talk about is space, both positive and negative. Now, typically, we think of space as being objects, and negative space as being the area around an object. Now, what M.C. Escher would do, now he was quite an interesting man. He was Dutch, he was an architect, he was a mathematician, and he started becoming, he did a lot of drawings and things. He started becoming a very well-known printmaker. But what he would do was he would bring positive space in and negative space in and mingle them. And so here you have fish down here. As the fish move up, they start mingling with these other dark spaces that were negative, and suddenly they become positive spaces because they're birds that are flying till you get up here. And it looks like, it's a goose of some sort. And so this is a play on both positive and negative space where they actually interchange. This is a little pen and brush sketch by Pom Poko. And so when you look at it, the dark ink areas are the positive spaces. This area up here we could call the negative space. And so you've got the strong positive space here and the negative space coming down here. Both spaces are very important to the composition. Maynard Dixon actually was kind of a Utah artist. Started off in San Francisco after the earthquake, the great earthquake. He moved away and started traveling throughout the West. And so he had a place that he had a studio set up in Arizona, and then he had one in southern Utah. But when you look at this, quite often we think of the sky as being a negative space and the earth as being positive. This is called cloud world. Now there is a strip of ground here, but it's insignificant. It even has two men on horseback. That's very insignificant for this painting. What's important is the clouds. So the clouds become the positive space, and all the sky in between becomes the negative space. This is another Maynard Dixon. When you look at this, the positive space are the individuals, and there's a rhythm to it. And then you have this one person in the foreground, so also with your positive space. The negative space wraps around and fills in this area here. So that's your negative space. Rene Magritte was a surrealist. He's from Belgium. And so he did a lot of very, very different things. Like, what would you dream about? What would you see in your dreams? And so here he's taken an image, and it's like it's been cut out of here and moved over. And so it's the man in a bowler hat, which he repeats in several of his paintings. But so here, this is your positive space, This is your positive space, this becomes your negative space, and your negative space. Very symmetrical. This is actually a photograph, but I like it because of the strong contrast between the positive and the negative. Your positive space would be the ground, the image is here, and the tree. Your negative space will be here and all this area here. And so when you're planning your compositions, you have to make an understanding or have an understanding of how to balance your positive and negative space so that it all works together in unity.